Hello guys, what is up? Today I'm doing What If Deku Train Like Baki Part 7. And before we start anything, I want to mention that I have a Discord server now. So I'll put a link down in the description so you guys can go and join if you want. We can have some anime discussions, all stuff like that. You guys can recommend or, like tell me about what ifs you think I should do. And also, I have a few new ideas that I got from people, and when I mention these, you know who you are. So, I'll be doing What If Tanjiro had decay? What if Deku ate the Maramara no Mi fruit, which is Ace's fruit in One Piece? What if Naruto had hits time skip? And what if Naruto had unlimited chakra? So, those will be coming out soon. Maybe I'll do one of them for like a special when I reach around 400 or 500. So, yeah, let's get right into it. Deku and Kirishima are partnered up to fight All Might, which excites both of them because Kirishima can now use up to about 15% without hurting himself too much, and Deku wants to show some of his taekwondo techniques he learned from ectoplasm during his agency training and all that. So they are allowed to enter the city and start walking toward the area where the gate is located and are formulating a plan when out of nowhere All Might pops up and punches Deku to the side. And since Kirishima realizes that the plan isn't really gonna work anymore because it just got disrupted as soon as they thought of it, he takes All Might head on. And then as he's doing so, Deku comes out and pops up behind All Might and uses his scarf to trip him. And then Kirishima uses up to about 55%. He can't control it, and then just also hardens and punches All Might in the ribs, which is his weak point because of his injury. And then at that moment, they both run away. And before they can actually leave, All Might stalks them again, but is actually steaming because he's losing his buff form. And that's when Deku has a certain idea. So he tells Kirishima to run up and distract All Might while he does something else. So Kirishima takes All Might head on again, and then they start like this back and forth kind of fight. And while All Might is distracted, Deku uses the taekwondo techniques he learned, and kind of, if you've watched God of High School, this is sort of like that. It's kind of like renewal taekwondo. He kind of tripped All Might with his kick, and then also hit him in the chin in that same instant, which knocks All Might off his balance, and then they take that chance to run away. And since Kirishima is a bit tired more because he still used over his limit in a burst of strength, so Deku slightly carried him, and since Deku can run as fast as a car, it's actually pretty believable that they would make it to the gate, and they win. So they both had to be taken to the infirmary and be treated by a recovery girl, and everybody else wins just like in the original, and they have the summer camp coming up. But before the day ends, Deku and Momo go to his house to meet up with Yujiro because Deku has something special to talk about. So they go into Deku's mansion and they have this sort of meeting. Deku is planning to get to infiltrate the League of Villains because he realizes how much more dangerous this has become ever since the first day they showed up. It has been nothing but trouble, so they need to find a way to deal with them quickly. And he proposes that he somehow gets kidnapped so he can show the heroes where the hideout is, or infiltrate it himself. So he asks Momo to make a tracker. Of course, Momo and Yujiro both object because this is too dangerous, and also Inko would kill both of them if they let him do that. But Deku says that this is the only way that they can do this. and they both realize that it's not exactly the best plan of action, but it's their only plan of action. Since they don't really know where the base is at, and this is probably the best plan they can come up with barely any time. So Deku explains the plan to them and how to make everything happen, and how Yujiro will be doing kind of recon and investigating certain things and kind of following the villains around. So after that, it is the next day and it is time for them to go to the camp. Deku gets on the bus with everyone else, and then everyone starts talking a little bit, and Bakugo brings up the fact that, well, his dad is the ogre, and Deku says, yeah, what's it to you? And Kaminari says, oh yeah, he rose up to number 20 in a few weeks as a hero. And Ida asks if Deku can tell them his dad's quirk, and he explains that his dad's quirk is called Multiplier. And Suyu asks if his mom is going to be released soon, and he says yes, and there's nothing to worry about. So after talking for a while, the bus stops, and Aizawa makes everyone get off, and they all get off, and just like in the original, everyone falls. I'm not changing that. It's gonna be a little bit harder for Deku because he doesn't have one for all. But with the help of Kirishima, them double teaming and working as a team, they take the monsters down easily. But this time it takes them about 4 hours. I think it was 3 hours in the original. I think so. So it takes them about 4 hours, and they make it, and they are all exhausted. And after that, they are told that this is where they will be living, and tomorrow will be intensive training, and that right now they get free dinner, but after that they cook their own food. So that night they have a feast, everyone gets together and they start cooking some food, and everyone's kind of hanging out. And up until the next day, everything happens as in the original, where Deku goes to meet Koda on his secret spot and tries to give him food, but obviously Koda rejects it and insults heroes because his own parents died because of trying to be heroic. The next day, they're woken up pretty cranky and barely have any energy, and are forced to come outside, and Aizawa demonstrates that not many of them have actually grown, besides Kirishima, because for some reason he had an intensive power boost lately. Of course Aizawa knows, but he's making it seem like he doesn't know what it is. Aside from Kirishima and Deku, nobody else has gotten really stronger. So he uses Bakugo as an example, and he uses explosions after he hands him the ball like in the first test, and he's only slightly stronger with his explosions, not by a large margin. So they start training right away, and this time, instead of Deku going with Tiger and Kirishima getting hit by Shoji to get better at using his hardening, this time Deku and Kirishima will be sparring. This way Deku can get used to fighting a power type quirk user like Kirishima and learn to navigate his way around it, and Kirishima can learn how to actually fight instead of just brawling and stuff. So they all train for a while, they're exhausted, and Class 1B comes up to see how murderous the training is, and are sort of relieved that they're not Class 1A right now, because they are in hell. And also Kirishima, I forgot to mention, Kirishima gets to also learn how to harden on impact. That way, when someone's about to hit him, he knows the precise spot to harden and not just spread it out uselessly and lose energy. After training for like a few days, it is time for the test of courage, and obviously Deku doesn't have a partner because the numbers are uneven. And before anything happens, as he is waiting, he sees blue flames popping out of the forest and smoke going everywhere. And Mandalay starts to get worried about Koda, and Deku wants to go get him, and Aizawa allows it. And since Deku was in a hurry and they weren't really expecting a villain attack, he doesn't get a scarf. He doesn't have his scarf yet, and he just runs out. As Deku arrives, he sees Koda about to fall off a cliff, being hounded by this huge man wearing a suit, and Deku rushes in with a roundhouse kick to the man's face from behind, and this sends the man towards the side against like the rock wall on the side of the mountain. And then Deku grabs the hand of Koda, who was close to about falling off the edge and gets ready to leave with Koda. But then the man who he hit reveals himself to be Hanayama, the man he fought in the USJ. And he's kind of excited, but he's also kind of scared. And he also realizes that he doesn't have time to fight. How is he gonna get out of this predicament? He can't stretch out his fight too much, so he doesn't know what to do. But out of nowhere, Hanayama rushes at him and grabs his hand, squeezing it so hard that his arm just pops and their blood just goes everywhere. And if you know Hanayama, if I didn't mention this before, Hanayama in Baki has strong grip strength, strong enough to bend a coin. And with super strength gotten from All For One, I think, yeah, that could happen. It already happened in the original even without a quirk, so imagine that with super strength. So while grating his teeth, he tells Koda to go hide, and he's in extreme pain right now, and he's trying to hold back his voice and be kind of calm like Aizawa usually is, and tries to analyze the situation. First thing he does is that he kicks Hanayama away and then rips off a part of his shirt to wrap around his arm and keeps the blood from leaking out. And then as he holds the pain in, they start a fight. When they start fighting, it's kind of dominated by Hanayama, and Deku is mostly dodging and punching, but when he gets punched by Hanayama, it hurts way more. And he's just dodging and punching and dodging and punching, and to a certain degree they're almost about a par to each other, but then Deku gets knocked back really far, and instead he switches to ectoplasm style fighting and starts using kicks and surprising Hanayama with a flurry of kicks just everywhere. And since he's fought him before, he figures out more about the regeneration, that if he targets certain parts and keeps hurting them more and more, he won't have time to regenerate as fast. The more he attacks certain parts, the more he has to spend energy regenerating that part, thus he's gonna get weaker. Deku is hitting the ribs, his windpipe, his knees, which supports a big man's stature. If you're a big man, your knees support your stature, so he's aiming for the right parts, and he gains the advantage. And Hanayama stops and asks, "How are you holding up against my punches?" Deku says, "Simple. I just had to inflict more pain on myself to stay conscious." Deku then reveals that he's been biting his tongue, and then reveals that it's cut and he's bleeding from it. And Koda in the back is just scared, and he's also sad because Deku is risking his life just to save him. A kid who didn't even care about what Deku said in the past and actually told him to leave him alone. Hanayama respects Deku's will to win, and then they rush each other for a final clash. But then out of nowhere, Yujiro lands, stopping the fight. And Hanayama asks, "Who are you?" And Yujiro says, "I'm the dad." Yujiro then grabs Hanayama by the neck and then throws him to the forest. And Deku then says, "I had that, you know." Yujiro says that he's sure that he had that, but this isn't the time for that, and he has some things to tell him. He says that they're going after Bakugo. Yujiro, after telling the information to Deku, then takes out the chip as per Deku's instructions, and then puts it on him. And then after that, Deku grabs Koda and they start to leave off so that Deku can go deal with some problems. And this is where I'm leaving it off. I hope you guys like this, share, subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next video.